Okay, we're going to look at body language and art. First of all, I just want to say it's been a while since I've done this lecture, so I might mispronounce some names. So there's this book called Postures, Body Language, and Art from Desmond Morris in 2019, and that's what we're going to use for our lecture today. All right, let's get going. This is one of my favorite examples of yawning in painting. It's at the Getty Center, which just announced it's going to close for a whole year. I've seen it a couple times there. It's Self-Portrait Yawning by Joseph Doucret. Yeah, I tried. All right, that's that. And then Yawning Men, Luigi Montagiano. It'd be interesting to have a group do this one on the left, or on the right, actually. And then I looked it up. It's Fang Li Jun is how you pronounce it. So back in the Yawning Men is from 1850, so middle of the 19th century, obviously. And then it's interesting, roundabout, well, I would say the 90s, but it really, I think it kind of takes off even more maybe in the early aughts. There's this huge interest in Chinese contemporary art, and Fang Li Jun was one of the darlings of the world art market for a very long time. That is not the case as much today, but still people collect a lot of contemporary Chinese art. Okay. And then you have the Yawning Apprentice on the left. And then I've always loved the Degas where he's depicting women at work. And so this is women ironing. From Degas. Good old yawn there as well. Okay, now let's go to greetings. All right, so this is a work by Jerome. It's Hail Caesar, those about to die salute you. So it's obviously in the Colosseum, and it's gladiators fighting to the death and making their salute, the hail to the Roman. Well, Caesar was never an emperor. They thought he was trying to become an emperor. So I guess it would be. Well, it might be another Caesar too. I don't know. Anyways, it's a shout out to the Roman leader. Let's just say that. Okay. And I'm trying to think. Hold on a second. So Ridley Scott, the director of the two Gladiator movies, we know, particularly for the first one, that he looked at a lot of Jerome paintings before he created his film, which is kind of a cool little factoid. And then this is Thomas Eakins' Salutat. So a boxer in the 19th century, late 19th century, saluting the audience. Okay, here's kind of an interesting little thing. So the handshake, let me tell you about it. As a common form of social greeting, the handshake is comparatively recent, dating from the early 19th century. Before then, bows, waves, curtsies, and hand flourishes of the hand were the greeting gestures of polite society. So that's something you should remember, that the handshake only begins in the early 19th century, although this is a example of it from 1648 from the Dutch 17th century, which is pretty interesting. Okay, and unfortunately I skipped the relief from Babylonia. Sorry about that. All right, next. The Embrace. So Filipino Lippi was from a very famous group of Italian Renaissance artists, a family of them. And this is the meeting of Joachim and Anne outside the Golden Gate of Jerusalem. And they are embracing. All right. And then let's go to the bow from Japan from 1767-68. I'm going to try and pronounce the Japanese artist's name, Harunobu. Hopefully that's right. I know a lot of you love Japanese art and artists, so hopefully I didn't butcher that one too much. All right, and then we're going to go to Prostration from China. And this is the kowtowing court official, early Tang Dynasty, 7th and 8th century. I really love that sculpture. It's nice. All right, now let's go to blessings. Okay, so they're trying to dupe Isaac in this narrative. I believe he thinks he's blessing Abraham, but in reality, he's blessing Jacob. So it's kind of a, switching it up a little bit here. So this is the laying on of hands. I like that. Next, the Latin and Orthodox blessing by Jesus. So you put your two fingers closest to you in your right hand, and then you curl the third and fourth, and then you put the thumb on the third finger. Yeah. You see this oftentimes with the Pope. The Pope does this blessing all the time, for sure. Okay, and then here's a Buddhist blessing. Aha. And if I remember right, this is the largest Buddha sculpture in existence in the world. And unfortunately, I can't remember where it's from. Well, maybe I'll try and find out. Hold on. Okay, that incredibly large sculpture of the Buddha is from China. Straight up. Okay, let's go to the second page here. All right, let's talk about status. Okay, so this is Gerard Terborch's memorial portrait of Moses Terborch, which I'd have to imagine is his son. And his son has very good posture. All right. And then we're going to go to, oh, yes. Okay. The double split hand is popular in the 16th century, so the 1500s. And at this point, we're talking about the Mannerist time period, which, of course, one of the most famous Mannerist artists, if not the most famous, is El Greco, who was from Greece, but actually spent most of his time working in Spain. That's kind of a cool look, isn't it? And then on the right is who? Maria de Medici by Bronzino, showing her double split hand. Okay, now let's go to the hidden hand. This is the painting, believe it or not, that's in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. It's not in France. And the reason why he has his hand inside his vest is because pockets had not been invented yet. This is what I've always heard. Pockets had not been invented yet for pants, and so one way to rest your hand was to put it in your vest. There you go. He doesn't have a stomach ache. He doesn't have the flu. Yeah, so that's that. And then, I'm skipping Stalin, probably for good reason. All right, now let's go to the dominant elbow. Who doesn't like a good dominant elbow? This is Kehinde Wiley. On the left, his work. And then, that's not William Merritt Chase. Oh, okay, I got it. So, Kehinde Wiley's sort of approach is to find somebody on the street, and it's usually men, although at one point he did do a series of women, and ask them to pose as art historical paintings of the past. And so that's what we have going on here. This young youth of color is posing as the artist Peter Lely's John Wilmot, 2nd Earl of Rochester. Okay, so that makes sense. All right. And then William Merritt Chase is, obviously very well known, late 19th century artist. I don't think he's as well known as, let's just say, John Singer Sargent or Cecilia Beaux or some of the other artists of the late 19th century. But he painted, much like Sargent and Beaux, he painted upper-class women, usually in the studio for Chase. And this is Lady in Black, and she's showing the dominant elbow. All right, what about a pointed foot? All right. This is Allan Ramsay's Richard Grenville, 2nd Earl Temple, 1762, with his pointed shoe. Very nice. And then what about a bent body? Here you go. What are we looking at a date here? Okay, so 1590. So we're in the Mannerist time period. Okay, so the kitchen has a lot of bent bodies, no doubt about it. There's some really interesting things going on in this kitchen. Okay, so that's kind of a fun one. All right, now let's go to insults. All right. This is the same guy that we just looked at, the very first painting, actually. It's another self-portrait in the guise of a mocker. I don't like that one as much, to be honest. But hey, what are you going to do? All right, and then youth making a face. Yeah. So this is what we would call a genre piece, a scene from everyday life. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, I won't say. I don't know the origin of it. What country now? But I have my thoughts. All right, what about the tongue out? Elijah, mocked by boys. Yeah, I mean, some of these examples of body language are satirical, kind of mean, to be honest. I think that's what we see here. And then one of my favorite artists, contemporary artists of all time, look him up in Art21. He's got they have a lot of different videos on him. It's Trenton Doyle Hancock, self-portrait with tongue. Known for these incredible, fantastic worlds that he creates with his paintings. He's fascinating. All right, what about the air grasp? Aha! I like this one. Shorakoos. And it's actually an actor doing the air grasp, which I guess makes sense. All right, now let's do distress. All right, so this is a work by Roger van der Weyden. It's called The Descent from the Cross. And there's a lot of weeping going on. There's actually, I think we can say that the Virgin Mary has actually fainted. She's in blue. There's some crying going on behind St. John the Evangelist in red. And there is crying going on with Mary Magdalene to the far right over the death of Jesus. Okay. Now where are we? All right. Yes. So this is kind of cool. So that was from 1443. So kind of the heart of the Renaissance, and although you can make a case that it's not the heart necessarily of the Northern Renaissance because it continues on in the 1500s. Okay, so this is an Olmec, so a Mesoamerican crying baby figure from 1100 to 900 BCE, before the Common Era. And it's just something a little different, which is always good to have. All right, so we're going to continue with this theme with distress, and here we have mourning. So yes, it's a study, and you may know that in the Victorian era, not just in England but also other areas of Europe, there was a focus on death and on the mourning process. It's said that Victoria herself never was seen in anything but black after her Prince Albert's death. And yeah, so it's kind of a focus of that late 19th century. And probably even a little bit into the first part of the 20th century. Okay, and then here's some more. I think. Yeah, okay, so I got it now. So that was the study that he was doing for this painting, and then this is the completed painting for this particular artist. Emile Friant, I'm going to try and say. All right, now let's go to disgust. So the bitter potion, on the left, and I have to believe this is from the Dutch 17th century. And then this is Messerschmitt's The Vexed Man. And Messerschmitt is really interesting. He did a lot of sculptures of people in various states of emotion. And his work all by itself, I mean, whenever you see something like that on the right, it's going to be Messerschmitt. Okay, now let's do self-protection. So this is untitled. It's a Basquiat, of course. And he's surrendering is what the theme is here. And then here is Vincent van Gogh's Sorrowing Old Man. Van Gogh was so sensitive. He was a person who really empathized, and you can see that with this particular work. Okay, now let's do a body cross. Yeah. So this is an artist who in the early 20th century became very well known as an expressionist, I think we would call her. And this is Paula Manderson Becker's Old Peasant Woman with her hands crossed, or body crossed. This is just kind of a silly little thing. This is a Netherlandish painter who we don't know who exactly it was. Portrait of a man in a turban. One of the things that Northern Renaissance artists were great at was hands, and I think you can see that here. Why the red turban? I don't know. All right, and then let's do Arms Folded. This is a work by Goya, one of my favorite artists of all time. It's actually an architect friend of his. And then this is a woman actually from Portugal, but she spent a lot of time outside Portugal. And this is Paula Rigo's central panel of the triptych Vanitas, 2006. So we've got some crossed arms. We've got a woman sort of sleeping to the left. So there's many things you could do with this one, actually. All right. And then arms akimbo. Who doesn't like that? This is Rembrandt on the left, portrait of a man with arms akimbo. And then Soutine's The Bellboy on the right. I've just started to learn some stuff about Soutine as of late. I find him interesting. All right. And then back to Gerome. Remember, he did the gladiator scene. Here's a woman with a veil. All right. And then we've got just a few more. At Rest. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so I skipped for a second Freud's The Brigadier. So this is a figurine from Mexico. All right. 16th century. Squatting is obviously being seen here. All right. And then we're going to do... Oh, we didn't do legs crossed. Sorry about that. Okay, and then so this is actually... I'm going to put it back on your slide, Liz. This is Courbet's Women by... I don't know. I can't remember the exact title of this one, but Women by a River. Okay. And then Sleeping. Botticelli's Venus and Mars. It's one of the most famous Botticellis, partly because it's at the National Gallery in London. But yeah, so our last one is Mars sleeping while Venus looks on. And there's a whole bunch of interesting little young satyrs that are playing around. Okay, that's it. That's body language and art.